Deep within the silent tombs of the Nile Valley, history itself is not at rest. It whispers secrets of impossible journeys and forbidden knowledge, secrets that challenge the very foundations of our past. Welcome to Echoes of Time, your portal to the forgotten pages of history. Here, we delve into the stories that never made it into the textbooks, revealing the secrets that lie under the dust of centuries. Today, we confront an enigma that has haunted Egyptology for decades, a mystery that begins not in the sands of the desert, but under the cold, sterile lens of a microscope. It is the baffling, almost unbelievable story of ancient Egypt's cocaine mummies, an unearthing of what might be a forbidden, transoceanic drug trade that history chose to forget. The year is 1992. In a quiet laboratory in Germany, toxicologist Svetlana Balabanova is conducting a routine analysis of ancient Egyptian mummies.
The goal is simple: to learn more about the lives, diets, and habits of these people preserved for millennia. But what she finds is anything but routine. As the results from her gas chromatography mass spectrometry machine flicker to life, they reveal a chemical signature that has no place in the ancient world. It is a ghost from another continent, an echo from a future that had not yet happened. The mummies, some over 3,000 years old, test positive for cocaine and nicotine. The implications were seismic. The scientific and historical communities were thrown into an uproar. How could this be? The coca plant, the only known natural source of cocaine, is native exclusively to the Americas. The same is true for the tobacco plant, the primary source of nicotine. These were continents separated from ancient Egypt by thousands of miles of treacherous, uncharted ocean. The accepted historical timeline is clear. The Old World and the New World remained isolated from one another until the voyages of Columbus, nearly 3,000 years after these mummies were laid to rest. Balabanova's discovery was not just an anomaly, it was a chronological and geographical impossibility. It was heresy against the established narrative of history. Immediately, the findings were met with a storm of skepticism. The easiest, most logical explanation was contamination. Perhaps the mummies had been handled by Victorian-era archaeologists who smoked pipes and used cocaine as a common medicinal tincture. Maybe the museum storage facilities were not as pristine as believed. Contamination is the simplest answer, the one that allows the grand story of history to remain unchanged. But Balabanova was a meticulous scientist. She had anticipated these criticisms. Her protocols were rigorous, employing multiple tests on hair, soft tissue, and bone, which absorb and store substances consumed during a person's life. Hair, in particular, acts as a timeline, trapping chemicals as it grows, making recent, external contamination easy to distinguish from long-term ingestion. And then, the most damning piece of evidence emerged. This was not an isolated incident. As other researchers, intrigued and skeptical, began to conduct their own studies, the impossible kept happening. Subsequent analyses of other mummies from different collections, performed in different labs, began to corroborate Balabanova's findings. The consistent detection of these specific American-originated drugs in multiple, separate samples from the Nile Valley became a persistent thorn in the side of conventional history. The problem wouldn't go away. It demanded an explanation, forcing us to ask a question that feels like it belongs in fiction. How did pharaohs and priests get their hands on substances from a world they weren't supposed to know existed? This historical enigma opens a Pandora's box of possibilities, each more challenging than the last. The most conservative theory, short of outright contamination, points to a botanical misunderstanding. Perhaps, the argument goes, there were native African or Egyptian plants, now extinct or simply unidentified, that produced chemical compounds remarkably similar to cocaine and nicotine. This theory suggests that what Balabanova detected was not the American coca alkaloid itself, but a chemically analogous substance from a lost Egyptian plant. This is a tantalizing idea, a kind of botanical ghost haunting the banks of the Nile. It would solve the paradox neatly without rewriting world history. But it has one major flaw. It requires significant botanical evidence, and despite decades of searching, not a single shred of such a plant, nor any mention of it in the vast library of Egyptian hieroglyphs and papyri, has ever been discovered. It remains a theory built entirely on absence.
If we dismiss contamination and the ghost plant theory, we are forced to confront a far more audacious and world-altering possibility: an incredibly early, sophisticated, and perhaps deliberately secret transoceanic trade route between ancient Egypt and the Americas. Imagine it. Long before the Vikings, long before Columbus, intrepid mariners navigating by the stars, their ships laden with goods from the Nile. They cross the vast, terrifying expanse of the Atlantic, an ocean that was supposed to be an impassable barrier. They make contact with the civilizations of the Americas, exchanging knowledge, culture, and exotic goods. In this clandestine world market, Egyptian linen, glass beads, and gold are traded for the sacred and powerful plants of a new world, tobacco and coca. This theory transforms our understanding of the ancient world from a collection of isolated civilizations into a connected, global network. It suggests that our ancestors were far more capable and far more adventurous than we give them credit for. It hints at a forgotten chapter of human history, a story of connection and exchange that was either lost to time or perhaps was never meant to be widely known. The presence of cocaine and nicotine in the bodies of the Egyptian elite would no longer be a scientific anomaly, but rather the ultimate status symbol, proof of access to a divine substance from a land beyond the known horizons. It paints a picture of a clandestine trade in psychoactive substances, a forbidden network that supplied the priests and pharaohs with the keys to the spirit world, sourced from an impossible distance. Yet, this grand vision of ancient globalism is also built on a lack of evidence. Where are the Egyptian artifacts in the Americas? Where are the American goods, besides these chemical traces, in Egypt? The silence from the archaeological record is deafening. If such a monumental trade route existed, it seems to have left no other trace. This has led some to suggest that the contact was fleeting, or perhaps monopolized by a secretive cult or royal class that guarded the knowledge of this route as a source of immense power. It was a secret worth protecting, a secret that has remained buried for millennia. And that brings us to the third and most controversial theory of all, the one that whispers of deception in our own time. Could these results be the product of an elaborate hoax, or perhaps the result of unintentional but profound bias from modern researchers seeing what they wanted to see? This is the most cynical view, and the one that is hardest to substantiate. The rigorous scientific protocols employed by Balabanova and others who replicated her findings make a simple hoax difficult to imagine. It would require a widespread conspiracy across multiple, independent international laboratories over many years. While not impossible, it stretches credulity. Science is a process of peer review and replication, and while mistakes happen, a persistent, replicated result points not to a hoax, but to a genuine phenomenon that we simply do not yet understand. So we are left standing at a crossroads of history, faced with a set of deeply unsatisfying choices. Do we accept the simple explanation of contamination, despite the careful science designed to prevent it? Do we believe in a mysterious, now extinct plant that perfectly mimicked American drugs, a plant for which no evidence exists? Or do we dare to imagine a lost age of exploration and a secret global trade network that rewrites everything we thought we knew about the ancient world? Each possibility forces us to reconsider the isolation of ancient cultures and the true extent of their global reach. The cocaine mummies are more than just an archaeological curiosity. They are a profound challenge to our perception of the past.
They stand as a testament to the fact that history is not a closed book, but a living, breathing mystery with chapters still waiting to be read. They are an echo of a forgotten time, a faint signal from a past far more complex and interconnected than we have ever dared to believe. This is not just a story about drugs. It's a story about the boundaries of our knowledge and the courage to ask questions that may shatter our most cherished certainties. Was this an isolated chemical fluke, a series of stunning coincidences? Or is it the lingering chemical evidence of an ancient global trade network that history deliberately or accidentally forgot? The sands of Egypt still hold their secrets close, but the echoes of these impossible discoveries continue to reverberate through the halls of science and history, inviting us to keep digging, to keep questioning, and to never assume that the story of humanity is fully told. What other secrets are waiting, locked away in bone and stone, ready to rewrite our past?